You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. It's been a week where there's been a lot of talk about Assin North, Assin. In just 3 days' time, Tuesday, the by-elections there will happen because the Supreme Court pronounced recently that he had allegiance to a country other than Ghana. And that was supposed to be Canada because he was once a dual national of that country as well. He had a dual allegiance to that country in addition to Ghana. At the time he picked his nominations to contest. So it doesn't matter that he got his renunciation certificate by the time he was elected and sworn in. That is the law. At the time you are filing your nominations, make sure that you are clean. So because of that, there's a by-election and the campaign has been heated. It looks like both the NDC and the NPP, all of them, national leaders are gravitating to Assin North. But this week, things were heightened as Assin, the criminal trial, his lawyers sought the opportunity so that he would be excused from coming to court until the elections there were over, and he didn't get that. And then applications started flying. Eventually that was determined yesterday. Even though it was determined against, the application was not granted, the NDC says they got what they wanted. After all, he's not going to, the daily sittings will not start until the 4th of July. So let's begin the discussion. On that note. Professor Jampo, start with you on this. Some say, well, the court or the judge brought all of this brouhaha on itself, because if at the earlier date, when the request was made that the court should consider the fact that there's a by-election, he has to, campaign, and therefore he should be excused until the by-elections had been done, so that at least from the 29th he could be attending court. If the court had agreed at that time, all these brouhaha would not have come up with accusations that, the judiciary was sort of in cahoots with government to deny him the opportunity of campaigning and all of this. What do you say?
Well, thank you. That was my view initially when I heard that the Assin case was going to be heard on a daily basis, and that even if he's supposed to be campaigning, he will be asked to be part of the court process because the case is criminal. I thought it was quite, it deepened the perception that, look, the judiciary is being manipulated in a way to give a certain advantage to the ruling party's candidate in this by-election. But I am happy that some of us spoke publicly against this, and I'm sure that the judges, they live in society, and so sometimes they also listen to comments and the sentiments and mood of people. So I am happy that at least in the subsequent ruling, I think they have said that the guy can go about his campaigning while the case hearing, goes on. So it is good. The judiciary itself has a responsibility to work in such a way that it will repair its own image in the eyes of many Ghanaians. Because there are so many Ghanaians who feel that judicial independence has been quite, is getting sacrificed, day by day. And so some of these second views or second rulings or verdicts coming from same judges would help in repairing the image of the judiciary as a whole. So I wouldn't want us to hit them hard too much, because the judiciary is all that we have. And when it gets
but the question is, the question is that two lawyers make an argument. The NDC's lawyers make the argument that there's a by-election, so give him some space. the Attorney General is in court. And he also makes the argument that don't let him determine how things will go on in this court. We must have a speedy trial. And the Attorney General's arguments win the day. Why should that be stretched to these claims that it is the judiciary that is sort of working with the government to frustrate someone?
The argument that Jati Assin is contesting an election and that it's a national assignment and that he wasn't running away should have been compelling. You know, people have won elections while they were even in prison. And so to the extent that I was told that what Jati Assin was, the journey was embarking was quite personal and non-national, I found that kind of argument ridiculous. And I believe the judge merely exercised a certain discretion that later on he or she found out that, look, that was not in the best interest of even our electoral politics and our democracy. And so if the decision was valid from the first one, I think it's something that we must comment. But okay. I purely believe that the Attorney General's argument shouldn't have been upheld in the first place. It was quite ridiculous to say that the assignment or exercise wasn't a national exercise. It's an important exercise about representation, serving constituent interests. And so I thought a judge could have disagreed right from the word go with the Attorney General. But they have a lot of discretion that they also exercise. So
right.
If they exercise that discretion and later vary the discretion, I think it's all good for Madagascar.
Okay. Yes, so now these elections, from where you sit, why is it almost like a do-or-die affair for the two parties? And why should it be so difficult for the NPP, NDC, to retain the seat after its candidate, won it by a margin of 3,305 or so votes?
Don't forget that in same election, at the presidential race, the candidate of the NPP won. So the NDC won the parliamentary seat there, and then in the same election, President Akufo-Addo won. It tells you that, you see, the people there, they are quite cosmopolitan. And then the Assin North is the coming together of people from all backgrounds. And so they are quite discerning, they are quite rational, and it can swing anyway. Don't forget also, if you look at history, NDC has won the seat, MPP has also won the seat on several occasions. So it's a keenly contested election. And the other bit is that he who wins this particular election would have a certain bragging right and will have a statement for Ghanaians. MPP is seeking to break the 8. If they win this election, it would help them to propagate this particular statement. NDC is seeking to take power from the MPP, and they are saying that the MPP has disappointed Ghanaians, and that Ghanaians should give them another chance to come and govern the country. If they should win this election, it would also be a plus for them in terms of the message that they want to canvass and deepen among Ghanaians. And so it's a keenly contested.
It's already their seat. So why should it make any difference? Yes,
well,
it's a fact. It's a fact that Akufo-Addo beat Mahama there in that same election by over 1,000 votes.
Well, it is their seat, like I said. It is their seat. But to the extent that they didn't vote, they voted skirt and blouse. Split ticket voting was what they did. The extent that they did that, it should tell you that the people could vary their views and their voting patterns depending on how things go. And it's not a safe seat for any political party. And if you are going into election in an area or in a constituency that can be described as an unsafe seat, then you must approach that process of election with caution and then with a lot of interest. And so that's why the two parties are keenly competing among themselves. Now, this time, you see, during such elections, you hear accusations of vote buying only from the ruling party side because they have the resources. But this time, what we are hearing is that the accusations of vote buying across the political divide. They are all doing all they can to.
But it's a fact, isn't it? The opposition cannot outdo the governing party if they are buying votes.
They can't outdo them in terms of vote buying. But the point is that vote buying, no matter how little it is vote buying, and it is something that undermines the expression of the popular choice of the people, and it's something that we must not sort of support or countenance or tolerate, as a people in Ghana. And the possibility of such keenly contested elections to generate in violence is always high. And so I would call on the police that just as we did in the lead up to the Kumewu by-election, I know that an unfortunate incident happened, and one of them was sadly murdered this week, and many of them are grieving. But I would urge Dr. Dampare that he should assemble his men to the place and make sure that they are proactive so that the competition does not degenerate into violence.
Okay, thank you. Ben Assin, thank you so very much for your time. What makes this by-election, a lot more special, so to speak, is what the parliament is now, isn't it?
Good morning. Well, I think that, Assin lost in 2012, NDC won with the parliamentary presidential. 2016, NPP won both presidential parliamentary. 2020, NPP won the presidential, and NDC won the parliamentary. I think that the difference in 2015 was that the equation comes from Assin Breku. The lady candidate for the MPP came from another town. This time, both the NPP candidate and the NDC, they are both from Assin Breku. The lady who contested has been campaigning for the NPP candidate. And because of the resultant advantage in Parliament, clearly you will see that both parties won this seat so badly. For Crescent, the sympathy vote that he would have gotten has been dimmed a bit because some NDC people were trying to influence the swing voters that when there is by-election, your roads get done, money comes from both parties. So let's vote Crescent in. If he loses, then he is jailed for another by-election. But, the court asking him to go back to campaign has dimmed that. Now, for the NPP candidate, the little investigations I've done about him, it seems that he had been preparing himself something for politics. For the past few years, he's had an NGO who helps children with exercise books, does help the disadvantaged, and so on. So that places him with an advantage. And if something were to gamble with your last 100 CDs, I think that it's too close to call, but I would advise you to put your money on the NPP candidate.
Really?
Yes.
That's a Herculean task. Over 3,000 votes. Oh, that's not too much.
You see, the lady who contested is not for Assin Breku. Assin Breku is the biggest settlement within Assin North. He came from, person was from Assin Breku, and the lady was from another area. And the lady had issues with some of the NPP people in Assin Breku. That is why the lady who had won and contested earlier, that is why this time she was asked to stay aside. So both candidates coming from Assin Breku and the lady popular in another town campaigning for him, Now, the MPP candidate, as I told you, have been doing a lot of philanthropic work within Assin North.
Yeah. The question I asked you earlier was that, is it not because of how Parliament is shaped now, as far as the numbers are concerned, that both parties appear to see this almost like a national election?
That is true, but it gives you an impetus. And John Mahama seems to have given it an extra edge by saying that the Assin elections is a determinant of the performance of the MPP government. So if the MPP win, they will say John Mahama has, by his own admission, confirmed that the MPP is doing well. If the NDC wins, they're going to say, well, Assin North is a swing constituency, and by the results, it shows that you've not been doing well. So apart from the razor-thin advantage, something in Parliament, I think that it gives most parties a bargaining chip.
Yes, but you have been watching politics for a long time. How much influence, do by-elections have on national elections?
Oh, it's more propaganda value. It's more something of propaganda value, in terms of what people will think, what people will say. I must say something that with 17 months to voting, it's going to be anybody's game. But this one is going to be basically the advantage in Parliament and bragging rights towards 2024.
All right. So hold it on for me there, and let me come to Alex and Ahiaba, Richard. So, Alex, yes, as we understand, your national leaders are trooping in there. Just about 2 days ago, is it Haruna Idrisu and some others? We understand, and we saw them in videos where they were doing, these days, what do you guys call that campaign again? You do...
Door-to-door?
Not really, it's a door-to-door, but you call it something else. Yes. So, why do you find it that a seat that you hold within an excess of 3,000 votes, you must do so much to hold it?
First and foremost, good morning to your viewers and my colleagues on the via Zoom and yourself. I don't think that there is a problem with that position, because by-elections historically have been considered to be favorable to incumbent governments by virtue of the fact that they go in with all the sweetness, etc., and they put a lot of effort into ensuring that they get the seats, because it is normally also seen as a reflection of the government's performance at the time. So, except it is a stronghold of a political party like Kumawu, it is swing constituencies are always considered a barometer or a measure of how government have performed. So what John Mahama says is not.
But if you are buying votes,
yes,
how then do you celebrate it that this is a reflection of my performance when you bought the votes? They are not genuine votes.
We all know this, but that is how it is perceived. It gives you a propaganda value, some form of bragging rights. But you asked a very pertinent question. What is the effect of this on a general election? And the answer is nothing. General elections have a totally different, it's a totally different creature or animal. And so the odd by-election here and there will not tell you one way or the other what is going to happen in a general election. And I've always maintained that on any program I am.
But even if it's of propaganda value, yes, that is significant, isn't it?
Yes, up to a point. So, but it's a swing constituency. So I'm very realistic about what the position is. For me, the MPP have more to lose than we do. Yes, it was our seat. But they have actually created a sympathy value for Chachi Kwesin because they have created the impression that they are doing everything to ensure that he doesn't have a fair election process. You asked a very important question to Professor Jampo about the judicial processes that have been going on. And no one takes away from the discretion a court has to set dates, as often as possible, yes. But ethically or even morally, you're a lawyer. How many people are sitting in remand who have not seen a courtroom for over a year? They don't have rights to quickly have their cases heard. And all of a sudden, in this case, we know about the rights of a country to ensure that people are heard daily. So we create problems for ourselves in any infrastructural group, judiciary, executive, when you pick on this particular case. So the only conclusion you draw is that the executive are interfering with the judiciary. Because there are numerous people in this country who are actually in custody. They haven't even had a hearing. They are innocent, but in custody. And even to get a date to go to court, they haven't even given them a date.
You're actually speaking to my prison project.
Well,
and in my prison project, I visit the prison, speak to people on remand particularly. And the last time I was telling this story, and somebody was shocked that people have been there. Their warrants have expired. Yeah. Nobody bothers.
Nope.
They are just left to rot, like Sir Kwabwatin found out. Somebody has done 20 years. Just need to see a judge after being put on remand. Not that they have been convicted.
No.
And they don't have the opportunity.
So, but all of a sudden, in Chachi Kwesin case, we know day to day. I mean, it is totally political. That's the only conclusion that I can draw.
But it must be said, however, that day-to-day trials are actually more preferred. They are expedient. And they happen.
Yes.
Right.
Now, it's to do with fairness. Justice delayed is justice denied.
Justice hurried is justice buried.
So we have two fighting against themselves. So in between is the balance. So I ask you, what was a week going to cost him? And whose fairness are you after? That of the state or that of the individual? The individual's fairness is actually paramount. And he is saying, give me a week, I'll be back. Hello? So I'm clear that, yes, we have all these...
Well, in the process, you say there's a sympathy value that's been created for your candidate.
So that is why I'm saying that no matter how hard they push, look, the initial even disqualification was an issue. The Supreme Court cases, the judgments that have come out, the whole issues surrounding how he was not even allowed to stand or hold himself out as an MP even prior to judgment. Why? Just keep him out. Yeah, just keep him out of Parliament. That was the whole idea. And now you are keeping him away from trying to campaign. That is why the Attorney General is saying, all of a sudden we know, look, it is purely, Chachi Kwesin's issue is a purely political platform. And we will have the debates another time on the legalities after this election.
There's been leave granted for a review of the Supreme Court decision. Yeah. So there's 7 days that was granted by the Supreme Court for him to file for a review because he's challenging the Supreme Court's decision that something went wrong legally. Right, so we see how that goes. Yeah. Richard, as I understand, you are in Assin North presently, correct? And it does appear that you're already in some celebratory mood as the NPP that your machine on the ground will deliver the 3,000 plus votes that Chachi Kwesin got in your favor so that you win, correct?
Certainly, something you could have said it better. The New Patriotic Party has been on the ground fortunately, unfortunately for us, right from Kumawu, we rode in here and we've been working since. And our MO is fairly simple, that we'll go to the people, canvass them, tell them what we want to do, what we have done, and on the basis of that, promise that in the future we'll do more of what we have done for them. And that has been our conversation here. And I think that it's taking hold, and come 27, the New Patriotic Party is going to win. The conversation about the candidate of the NDC is one that I think that the NDC, well after this election, they'll come to terms with what wrong decision they have made. I think that the NDC, right from day one, in 2012, when Mr. Jechikweson showed up, they have mangled all the opportunities they have to decide properly as a political party for who represents them in Assin North. And the consequence of that is what we are all suffering today. In fact, Samson, permit me to share my condolences with the family of one of our communicators here who sadly passed yesterday, all parts of the efforts that we are giving here for victory on the 27th. We are yet to formally inform the family, but some people have been sent to.
So sorry about that. What led to his death? I think there was one earlier death reported on the side of the NDC. What led to this death?
Right. So this was not an accident, but he was involved in an accident with my vehicle much earlier, I think a week or two ago. But then got out and everything. But then yesterday we heard that he had some situation to do with asthma. We're not too sure. But then somehow he was brought to the hospital, and within 30 minutes or so, I was declared dead. And
sorry to hear that.
Very, yes. But we've resolved to move on and to ensure that ultimately, as a party, we win this election to the honor of all who have given the effort, and especially for the good of Assin North. So, Samson, I was saying much earlier that, the NDC conversation about the situation, I wonder sometimes when I hear them, if they are listening to themselves. Because here is a gentleman who came from Canada, wanted to contest, want to go to Parliament. And Samson, people who want to go to Parliament have foreknowledge. So they prepare, they do whatever it is they want to do, engage their communities, build relationships, nurture the constituency, and all of that activity goes on. We know that. But Mr. Quayson showed up and in 2012 wanted to contest, holding his Canadian citizenship in hand, wanted to contest, commence the process, which begins with a party screening before you get to the point where you go through screening with the Electoral Commission and file. He was holding that in his hand, and the party disqualified him. And Mr. Jechikweson went back to Canada for the ensuing 4 years. 2016, he came, holding the same document in hand. So you have something, if I venture to use this, he has a premeditated motive to want to contest with his candidature, his nationality as a Canadian in hand, until he crosses a certain line, then he feels that he's comfortable and he has won before he go and dispense with it. He came in 2016 with the same, Canadian citizenship in hand, and then contested and lost the primaries. In 2020, he came again. He had it because in 2020, when he came back, he was still holding his nationality as a Canadian. And so you now look at this sequence of events as to how it is that the Jechikweson, from day one, had this nationality issue and was not able to resolve it. And the NDC did not resolve that issue. And they allowed him to go through their primaries. And they allowed him and watched him file with the EC to contest. And subsequently then says that he's going to renounce it. So I'm saying that he has a motive, and his motive was to commit a crime because it was convenient for him to go that way. He was not looking at the interests of our Constitution. He was looking primarily at his self-interest. not at the interest of people of Assin North. And so what has happened here is what the person has brought upon himself, and in the process have breached our laws. And I think that, in all fairness, I mean, in the end, the NDC seeking power is seeking power to uphold the Constitution. And so when somebody has breached the Constitution, I think that it's incumbent on the NDC and all of us to ensure that that person pays for it. Otherwise, you create a moral hazard situation where anybody thinks that they can hide behind their political parties and breach the very law we're all trying to protect and uphold with our Constitution, with our democracy.
Is the president and the vice president, are they going to be there for your campaign?
They certainly will be here. The vice president was here yesterday, as you would see. He was here to commission the 31-kilometer road from Praso to Assin Fosu. That was beautiful. He will be here again tomorrow for our rally, which is the Herald of Victory on Tuesday. And I think that many more of our top-ranking members from parliament, ministers, party elders will be here, because it is that important for us as a party to be able to go back and help Assin North develop.
Right.
And you know the story of Assin North, Samson, just briefly. You know, this was a constituency that Honorable Kenneth Japon was the MP of. And every community we have been to, since he came, I was part of his campaign team that went around many other places. Everywhere we went, the people point to infrastructure project, electrification project that he has led to their communities. And ever since his departure, up until 2016 to 2020, there hasn't been any such development. And the people are calling for the return of the New Patriotic Party as a member of parliament to represent the good people of Assin.
Right. My final question to you on this is, there's the, suggestion that you want this extra number to your numbers in parliament to help you do business. But you still won't have, a good number to do business, because you have MPs who are ministers who have to travel almost always, and you will always need the opposition to be able to carry on business in the House. So even if you want this, it doesn't make any difference for the numbers in Parliament. What do you say?
Well, Samson, you know that the business of parliamentary work is consensus building. And so even when we had 169 in our first term, we still were engaging with the NDC. So that's a given. There's always going to have to be that dialogue, and it's healthy for our democracy. So it's not a situation where we are looking for a certain magical number, which this one will not be. But what is important? The idea that we would have those numbers is the incidental benefit of victory. But what is key for us in Assin of why we are giving every effort and effort to try and win the seat is we want to get development to the people. They've been denied development, proper representation that will benefit the people. And we think that the New Patriotic Party gives Assin North a better chance to develop. And that's why we're in this. And we think that on Tuesday, when we win, there will be hope, and there will be development, and there will be progress in Assin North. That's why we're in this, and that's why we're deploying everything that we have in our arsenal to make sure we win the seat on Tuesday.
Okay, thank you. Now,